Dying billionaire gave a street cleaner his black card. She healed him with one touch. A dying billionaire. A street cleaner no one noticed. One freezing New York morning. He collapsed in front of her, breathless. Broken, ready to give up. Instead of walking away, she touched his wrist, whispered something ancient, and in that moment, his heart didn't stop. It remembered how to live. Who is this woman? Why does her name show up in the margins of a CEO's deathbed journal, written 20 years ago? He gave her his black card. But what she gave him back was time, was truth, was love. Hit subscribe now, because this isn't just a love story. It's a miracle disguised as a second chance. And the ending? It won't leave you the same. New York City, present day. It was the kind of bitter winter morning that cuts straight to the bone. Where even the steam rising from the subway grates couldn't bring warmth to the air. Park Avenue was quiet for once. Just the occasional cab slicing through slush. The sound of heels on pavement. And the soft scrape of a street broom. She moved like she belonged to the cracks in the sidewalk, invisible. Efficient. And oddly graceful. Her name was Mira Thompson. 29. Former top medical student. Now, she swept the streets of Manhattan at dawn while the city still slept. People assumed she was just another cleaner. But she wasn't. Not really. She had a past too complicated to explain. And a gift she had long chosen to hide. Up in a penthouse just a few blocks away, Damian Hale, 36, lay motionless on a chaise lounge, the morning sunlight catching the hollow curve beneath his cheekbone. CEO of Hale International. A billionaire. A genius in biotech. A man who once believed science could solve anything until it couldn't. 3 days. That's what the doctors said. 3 days left to live. And nothing more could be done. He hated pity. Hated hospitals. So he'd sent the doctors away. Fired the nurses. Cancelled his board meetings. All he wanted was to disappear quietly. But something unexpected happened that morning. Damian walked out alone. No bodyguards. No entourage. Just a man in a designer coat and cashmere scarf. Looking like death in a suit. He turned onto a side street and watched Mira from across the road. She was trying to unjam a metal grate with her bare hands. Her fingers were red from the cold. Her hair tucked beneath a beanie that had seen better days. She looked up, startled, when he approached. "You work hard," Damian said hoarsely, his voice a shadow of what it once was. Mira blinked. Most rich men didn't speak to her unless they were yelling about trash. "Yeah, well," she said, standing, brushing snow off her jacket. "No one else will." He pulled something from his coat pocket. A black card. Amex Centurion. Unlimited. No name. Just a code, the kind only billionaires carried. "Take this," he said. "Do something with it. Get out of this cold. Live better." Mira stared at it like it was radioactive. "What the hell is this?" she whispered. "A gift. From a dying man." She frowned. "You okay?" "No. And I don't want to be saved." But Mira was already looking at him differently. His pupils were dilated, fingertips faintly blue, labored breath. Her instincts kicked in. The ones she tried so hard to bury. She moved closer. "You have a right to not want help," she said quietly. "But you should know, you might not be dying." "Not yet." He looked at her, really looked. She wasn't just a cleaner. "Who are you?" he asked. She didn't answer. Not yet. Later that day, headlines would buzz quietly beneath the surface. Mystery woman seen with reclusive CEO. Damian Hale's disappearance. Rumors of hospice care? No one knew that in a crumbling walk-up apartment just off Canal Street. The billionaire who had 3 days left to live was lying on a thrift store mattress, while a girl with a mop and a secret pressed her fingers gently to his wrist. The city didn't know her name. But it would. Session 1. The gift nobody wanted. The wind howled through the Manhattan streets, sending wrappers and cigarette butts tumbling across the sidewalk like forgotten memories. At the corner of 52nd and Lexington, Mira Dawson dragged her broom across the pavement, her breath forming little clouds in the morning chill. She was used to the cold, both from the weather and from the looks people gave her. She wasn't homeless, but most people assumed she was. With her old gray hoodie, patched-up gloves, and eyes that spoke of too many sleepless nights, Mira blended into the city's background like a shadow nobody cared to follow. That morning started like any other, except it wasn't. Because halfway through her usual route, Just as she bent down to scoop up an empty coffee cup someone had kindly tossed 5 inches from the trash can, a man collapsed right in front of her. He was dressed in a perfectly tailored suit, black as midnight, with a silk tie loosened at the neck and shoes that cost more than her entire year's salary. But his face, ashen. His breath, shallow. His lips, tinted blue. "Hey," she shouted, kneeling beside him. "Hey, can you hear me?" His eyelids fluttered open, just barely. The man gave a weak chuckle, then coughed. "Of all the people in this damn city," he murmured, "I collapse in front of a street sweeper." "Yeah, well, you picked the right one," she muttered, already reaching into her satchel for her small emergency kit. "Try not to die, okay? That'd really mess up my shift." She cradled his head carefully, checked his pulse. Faint, but steady. "I'm fine," he gasped. "Just give me a minute." "No, you're not," Mira said sharply. "You need a hospital. Now." "Not gonna happen." He fumbled in his inside coat pocket and pulled out a small, matte black card, sleek, heavy, and clearly expensive. "I don't need a hospital. I need peace. Here." He held it out with a shaky hand. Mira blinked. "What is this?" "My black card. No limit. Yours now." She froze. "Excuse me?" The man's voice was barely above a whisper now. "Use it. Get out of this life. You deserve better. Look, I don't need charity. This isn't charity." He looked at her with something like finality. "It's penance." And then, he fainted. Mira stood there in stunned silence, card still in her hand, wondering if this was some kind of prank, or a billionaire's last act of rebellion. She looked around. No cameras, no crowds, just her, a man who might be dying, and a mysterious piece of plastic that could buy an island. Sirens wailed in the distance. With shaking hands, she pulled out her flip phone, the only thing she could afford, and called 911. 20 minutes later, the stranger was on a stretcher, being loaded into an ambulance. Mira stood by the curb, still holding the black card, heart thudding like a war drum in her chest. She didn't know his name, didn't know his story, but something in her gut told her he wasn't just another rich guy with heart problems. That same gut instinct, the one that once led her to find an injured dog on the side of the freeway and save its life, told her she hadn't seen the last of him. That night, Mira sat on the edge of her twin mattress in her one-room apartment in the Bronx, staring at the black card on the kitchen table. It gleamed under the flickering light bulb like it was watching her. She'd been through hell the past few years, losing her mother to cancer, being swindled by a fake clinic that promised healing herbs but took her savings instead, working 3 jobs to keep her grandmother's medical bills paid, and now, sweeping the streets for barely enough to cover rent. And yet, she'd never taken a dime she didn't earn. But this wasn't a handout. It was something else. A test, maybe, or a calling. And deep down, Mira knew one thing with certainty. She had seen death too many times to ignore the look in that man's eyes. He wasn't just sick, he was dying, and he wanted her to be the last person he saw before he left this world. But why? Meanwhile, across town, in a penthouse wrapped in glass and silence, Damien Hale awoke in a hospital bed, cursing the world under his breath. "Mr. Hale," said the nurse, gently adjusting his IV. "You collapsed due to extreme cardiac fatigue. You've pushed your body too far again. The specialists will be here soon." "Don't bother," he said coldly. "They'll say the same thing the last ones did. I've got 3 days, maybe 2. But Mr. Hale, just leave me alone." The nurse hesitated, then left. Damien turned his head to the city skyline outside his window. 3 days. 3 days left to live. And all he'd built, Hale Industries, a $40 billion empire, meant nothing now. No family, no legacy, no peace. Except her, the street cleaner, the one with fire in her voice and hands that didn't tremble. He had given her the black card on instinct, thinking maybe, just maybe, it would mean something. But something about her eyes haunted him. Like she knew pain, like she understood death in a way no doctor ever could. Could she help him? Was it crazy to think she might be the one? Back in the Bronx, Mira had made a decision. She didn't sleep that night. Instead, she pulled an old wooden box from under her bed, something she hadn't touched in years. Inside were old papers, faded photos, and a leather-bound book with a lotus carved into its cover. It was her mother's, passed down from her mother. And hers before that. A book of medicine. But not the kind taught in schools. The kind you weren't supposed to believe in. But Mira had always known, it was real. Because she'd seen it work. More than once. And maybe now, after all these years, it was time to stop hiding who she was. The next morning, she walked into the hospital like she belonged there. A security guard stopped her. "Ma'am, patients' floors are restricted unless you're family." "I'm not family," Mira said, lifting the black card slowly. The guard blinked. "Is that?" "Yep, and the man who gave it to me is dying." The guard radioed someone, nodded after a beat, and waved her through. Room 1107. Mira took a deep breath, knocked once, and stepped inside. Damien was sitting upright, pale and exhausted, but when he saw her, he smiled. "I was hoping you'd come." She said nothing, just pulled a chair to his bedside, set her satchel down, and opened the old leather book. He blinked. "What's that?" "My legacy," she said simply. "You're a doctor?" "No." "Then what are you?" She met his gaze, calm and steady. "I'm the last of the Dawson line. We don't practice medicine, we practice healing." He stared at her like she was from another planet. "You're insane." "Maybe," she replied, "but so are the men who said you'd be dead in 3 days. And I'm not ready to let you go." "You think you can save me?" "No," she whispered. "I know I can." Session 2. The man behind the mask. The rooftop was Damien Hale's only sanctuary. No board members, no doctors, no machines clicking ominous numbers. Just air, or what little of it his failing lungs would allow. The skyline stretched around him like a jagged cage of ambition and broken promises. He stood alone, blazer discarded, tie loosened, staring out into the concrete horizon with the kind of stillness that only came from knowing your days were numbered. 3 days left. That's what the specialist said. 3 days before the rare degenerative condition consuming his organs finally won. But Damien had stopped listening to doctors a long time ago. He didn't fear death. He feared dying, unloved. That thought alone had brought him back to the streets earlier, to the woman with the broom and the quiet fire in her eyes. Mira. She hadn't flinched at his sickness. Hadn't looked at his black card like a lottery ticket. She had looked at him. Really looked. It terrified him more than the diagnosis ever had. Flashback. Earlier that day. His body had given out again near the edge of East 37th. He had collapsed, breath shallow. Limbs numb. Right outside the same alley where he'd first seen her. The same alley he now visited every week, hoping to catch a glimpse of her sweeping. She always did it with care, like she was tending to something holy, not trash. That day, she had rushed over without hesitation, crouched beside him, placed a calloused hand on his wrist. "You're pale," she said, "and you're freezing." He chuckled weakly. "I'm dying. 3-day expiration notice. You'd be cold too." Instead of backing away, she'd narrowed her eyes like she was reading a map beneath his skin. "You're not dying," she muttered. "Your liver's collapsed. Kidneys too. Heart's working overtime to make up for it. Whoever told you you had 3 days, didn't know what they were talking about." He stared, startled. "How the hell would you know that?" "I was born into a medical family." "But that's not important." She stood. "What's important is that you're an idiot for sitting out here alone. If you want to give up, fine, but don't drag your soul down with you." That was the moment, right there, when something long dead flickered in his chest. She had walked away then, like she hadn't just cracked open his world. Rooftop. Damien pulled the black card from his wallet, twirling it between his fingers. He had given it to her out of impulse. Not strategy. It wasn't charity. It was surrender. He was a man who had built an empire by controlling every outcome. But Mira was a variable he hadn't planned for. The sound of the door behind him clicking open broke the silence. "Sir?" It was Callum, his assistant. "Your 4 p.m. board briefing. Cancel it." "But the shareholders, they'll survive," Damien muttered, slipping the card back into his pocket. Callum hesitated. "Sir, there's been chatter in the private medical community about a woman who treated a patient everyone else gave up on." Damien turned, brows lifted. "They're calling her the Phantom Healer. She's refused every hospital offer. Works on the street. Some say she used to be part of an ancient medical family." Damien's voice was sharp. "Find her." Callum blinked. "Who, sir?" "You know who." Meanwhile, Lower East Side. Mira was used to being invisible. She preferred it that way. People didn't look twice at a street cleaner. Didn't ask questions. Didn't dig too deep. And that suited her perfectly. But ever since that man, the one with the storm in his chest and sadness in his eyes, gave her the black card, things had begun to shift. She hadn't touched the money. Not even once. Instead, she kept it tucked in the bottom of her cleaning cart, wrapped in a cloth scented with dried lavender, a habit she picked up from her grandmother, the last real doctor in their lineage. Her grandmother had taught her about pulse reading, about the flow of chi, about the quiet signs of organs crying out long before machines could detect. You don't need tools, Mira, she had said. You need sight and heart, both of which Mira had tried to bury for years. Until Damien Hale collapsed at her feet. Mira's past. She had once been someone. Not a cleaner. Not a ghost on the sidewalk. She was the youngest accepted apprentice at the Holbrook Medical Academy's underground clinic. A place where healing was sacred. Not corporate, but when she exposed a cover-up involving experimental drugs and terminal patients, she had been blacklisted, discredited, and forced to disappear. They took her name, but not her skill. A knock at her door. That night, she returned to her tiny one-room apartment above a shuttered bodega. The air smelled of rain and rust. A knock came just as she was unwrapping a loaf of bread. She opened it to find a man in a suit. Callum. Miss Mira, my employer requests your presence. Her jaw tightened. Tell your employer I don't work for the rich. He handed her a letter. It wasn't typed. It was handwritten, in sharp, almost angry cursive. You looked at me like I was human. Come look again. D.H. Her breath caught. She looked up. Where is he? Damien's private penthouse suite. He was sitting in the dark when she arrived. She didn't knock. You called me here to play doctor? She asked, stepping inside, eyes adjusting to the dim light. No, I called you here because I haven't been able to sleep since you walked away. She crossed her arms. That's not a symptom I can treat. He turned to face her, paler, thinner than she remembered, but still defiant. You said I'm not dying. Prove it. She moved closer. You really want me to? I've got nothing left to lose. She set down her bag, pulled out a cloth roll of hand-wrapped needles, simple, old-fashioned tools, passed down for generations. Lie down. No machines? He asked. No masks either, she said, so take yours off. He looked at her, and for the first time, she saw the truth in his eyes, fear. Not of death, but of being truly seen. He obeyed. She placed her fingers on his pulse. Eyes closed, breath steady, and for a long time, said nothing. Then, you've been misdiagnosed. His eyes widened. What? You're not dying. You're drowning. Slowly. Your body's overwhelmed with neurotoxic buildup from a rare genetic fault. Treatable, but not with the junk they've been feeding you. She reached into her coat pocket and handed him a slip of paper. This is the regimen. Natural, aggressive, painful, but it will work. He took the paper with shaking hands. And the catch? He asked. She met his gaze. You have to want to live. He looked away. That's harder than it sounds. She smiled, softly. Then I'll stay until you remember how. Session 3. The pulse she shouldn't know. The crowd thickened on the street corner of Lexington and 82nd. Drawn in by the rare sight of Damien Hale, yes. The Damien Hale, collapsed like any other mortal man. His suit jacket lay crumpled beneath him. Sweat trickled down his temple, soaking the starched collar of his designer shirt. A nearby vendor had placed a crate under his head, murmuring, he's breathing, barely. Phones came out, flashing, whispering, is that him? Hale Industries? The billionaire? No way, what happened to him? Then, her. The street cleaner with dirt on her sleeves and a cloth band across her head. Pushed through with a strange calm. Mira didn't panic. She didn't look up or around. She knelt beside him, laid her fingers gently on his wrist. He doesn't need 911. She said softly, half to herself. He needs time. A voice shouted behind her. Hey, get away from him. It was a young woman in navy scrubs. A nurse maybe, jogging over with her badge swinging. She knelt opposite Mira. Ma'am, back up. We don't know what's wrong with him. This could be cardiac. Mira didn't move. She was still holding Damien's wrist. Her brow furrowed. This pulse, it's fractured. She whispered. He's not dying because of his heart. It's his liver. And kidneys. His cheese collapsing. The nurse blinked. His what? Before Mira could respond, Damien stirred, a faint groan escaped his lips. The nurse turned to someone in the crowd. "Call it in. We need a paramedic here now." But Mira reached into the small leather satchel at her waist. Fingers moving quickly, she pulled out 3 strange metallic pins. Slender, curved, unlike anything you'd find in a first aid kit. "What are you doing?" the nurse hissed. "Don't touch him." Mira didn't answer. Her hands moved fast and certain, one pin behind Damien's left ear, the second just above his right ankle, the third directly at the center of his chest. A tiny flick, a click. Damien gasped. His back arched as if someone had just pulled his soul back from the edge. Then, stillness. Color began returning to his face. His breathing evened. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Even the nurse's mouth fell open. "What did you just?" "I stabilized his organs," Mira said softly, as if it were the most normal thing in the world. "He's not cured, but he won't die today." Who are you?" the nurse whispered. Mira finally looked up, her eyes calm but unreadable. "I'm nobody." Then she stood and turned away, brushing dust from her knees. As she passed a stunned food vendor, she handed him a 20. "That crate's yours. Thanks for helping." Paramedics arrived seconds later, rushing toward Damien with a stretcher. But by then, he was already sitting up, dazed, confused, weak, but alive. One of them blinked. "Mr. Hale?" Damien looked around, then down at the black card still clutched in his hand. He remembered her, the cleaner, but she was gone. Later that night, in the penthouse of Hale Tower, chaos reigned. Doctors, assistants, legal counsel, everyone was buzzing. His collapse had hit headlines within 30 minutes. The board was already panicking about succession. His assistant, Greta, was on her 6th cup of coffee and 3rd mini-crisis. "You can't just walk away from this," she hissed, pacing behind his desk. "You're terminal. Damien, the world knows now. Your shares will nosedive by morning." Damien stared out the window. Silent. The skyline was smeared in storm gray and gold. "I want to find her." Greta paused. "Who?" "The cleaner." "Mira." Greta blinked. "You mean the woman with a broom?" "I'm not crazy," he muttered. "She did something to me. I felt it." "You had a seizure." "No, it wasn't a seizure. I felt something change. It was like my organs stopped screaming. I could breathe." Greta sat, folded her arms. "You gave a street cleaner your black card. That's insane, but fine. You want to find her? I'll run a background check." Damien shook his head. "She won't show up in databases. I need to go where she is." "And where's that?" He turned. "Out there. Somewhere in the Bronx, 3 a.m. The rain had washed the alleys into slick ribbons of reflection. Mira sat outside a boarded-up flower shop, sipping warm tea from a thermos. A boy in a hoodie passed her, nodded respectfully. "Evening, Doc. Get home, Levi," she replied. She didn't tell people who she really was. Not anymore. That life was long buried under whispers and secrets. Her mother's lineage, the old texts, the cures passed down like poetry, none of that mattered here. She was Mira now, the cleaner, the invisible. Until today, she closed her eyes, felt the old ache stirring in her chest. The same one she'd buried when she fled her past. Damien Hale had eyes like someone else. Someone she once failed. 3 days left, she murmured, as if reading a clock the rest of the world couldn't see. And yet, something told her she'd see him again. She'd touched more than his pulse today. She'd touched fate. Next morning, Hale Tower. A knock at the door. "Come in," Damien called, expecting Greta. Instead, a boy no older than 15 stepped in, holding a brown envelope and a broom under one arm. "You Damien Hale?" Damien raised an eyebrow. "Depends who's asking." The boy handed him the envelope. "She said if you really want answers, to meet her tonight. Same place." He turned, then paused. "Also said to tell you, the pins she used are from the Han Yin technique, not witchcraft." Damien stood slowly. Han Yin. Only one man he ever met knew that phrase. His late grandfather. A healer. Exiled from traditional medicine circles. Called a fraud by every Western doctor, until he cured Damien's childhood epilepsy. That technique had been lost for decades. Until now. Damien tightened his grip on the envelope. Inside, a map, hand-drawn, marked in red ink. "Midnight. Come alone. Leave your money." He exhaled, and smiled for the first time in months. Session 4. The diagnosis no one believed. New York City, the rooftop suite. Hale Tower. Damien Hale hadn't been touched by anyone who wasn't paid to do so in years. That's why the first time Mira placed her fingers lightly on his wrist to take his pulse, the cold burn of connection shocked him more than he cared to admit. She didn't ask for permission. She never did. "You're still running a fever," she said quietly, not looking up. "I always run a fever," Damien muttered, reclining against the velvet settee in his penthouse. Shirt half open. "It's the dying thing. Comes with the territory." "You're not dying," Mira said simply. Her tone wasn't hopeful. It was confident, unshakable, like the way a mountain might tell you it's not moving just because the wind insists. He laughed, bitter. "Tired? You must have missed the part where every doctor in this city gave me 3 days. I don't trust doctors who stop looking when the problem gets interesting." She replied, "I trust pulses. I trust breath. I trust the body when it whispers something different than the charts." Damien narrowed his eyes. "You sound like my grandmother's healer in Morocco. She used to crush garlic into tea and claim it cured heartbreak." Mira didn't smile. "Did it work?" He blinked. "Sometimes." She finally glanced up. Then she knew what she was doing. It had been 48 hours since Damien gave her his black card in a moment of absurd clarity. Since then, she had refused to leave. Not even to spend his fortune. She slept on the couch. She brewed foul-smelling tea in his industrial-grade kitchen. She cleaned nothing, despite being a street cleaner by trade. And most alarmingly, she watched him, not like a nurse, not like someone waiting for an inheritance, but like someone trying to remember a face they'd once seen in a dream. One night ago, Damien had collapsed in the middle of the hallway between his bedroom and the library. He hadn't made it to the panic button. The pain had him clawing at his chest. The world going white. He remembered thinking, so this is it. And then suddenly, she was there. Not his head of security. Not his private nurse. Mira. She dragged his 6-foot frame across the marble with the strength of a woman 3 times her size. Got him upright. Palmed something into his mouth. He remembered the taste. Bitter. Metallic. Like earth and thunder. Then darkness. When he woke up, she was staring out the window. Arms folded. And he wasn't dead. He hadn't even had the usual blood in his lungs. "I stabilized your liver for now," she said without turning. "But your blood is acidic. Your organs are drowning." "That's not in any medical report," he croaked. "That's because your doctors listen to machines. I listened to you." Later that morning, Damien's team arrived in suits. Tablets in hand. Legal team. Medical advisors. His CFO. They entered like sharks circling a bleeding whale. Mira didn't flinch. One man, Dr. Patel, stepped forward. "Mr. Hale, we understand you've allowed a guest to perform unsanctioned medical practices on your person?" "She saved my life 2 nights ago," Damien said, voice flat. "Sir," Patel cleared his throat, "with all due respect, this woman is not licensed. She's a street worker, likely unstable." "I'm standing right here," Mira said calmly. "And you should step out. Now," snapped Victoria, Damien's lawyer, her sleek bun pulled tighter than her expression. "Mr. Hale, your estate and corporate responsibilities require you to be dying quietly?" Mira interrupted, turning to face them. Victoria flushed. "Respectfully. No, not respectfully. Because none of you care if he lives. You just want him to last long enough to sign the right papers." "Mira," Damien started, but she lifted a hand. "I've seen men like this before. Powerful, isolated, surrounded by people who use big words and soft lies. And I've watched them die alone while their trusted circles divided their legacy before the body was cold." Silence. Then she turned to Dr. Patel. "Do you want proof I'm not a fraud?" He scoffed. "Please, enlighten us." She walked straight to him, plucked his wrist between her fingers, and closed her eyes. "Your blood pressure's too high. You're pre-diabetic. There's scar tissue around your pancreas, likely undetected. You've been waking up at night drenched in sweat. You haven't told your wife." Dr. Patel's mouth opened, closed. "Also," Mira added, "you eat too much salt." Damien chuckled for the first time in days. She dropped his hand gently. "Go see a real healer. Not someone with a framed degree. Someone who sees you." Victoria looked shaken. "Mr. Hale, this is outrageous." But Damien wasn't listening to her anymore. He was staring at Mira like she was made of answers. Later that night, private library. The fire crackled low. Outside, the skyline pulsed like a dying heart. Damien sat in his robe, glass of whiskey untouched. "You're not what you seem," he said softly. Mira was curled into the chair opposite him, barefoot, legs tucked beneath her. "Neither are you." "No, I'm just a man who built a billion-dollar empire and forgot to build a life." He paused. "What are you, Mira?" She looked into the flames. "I come from a line of healers no one believes in anymore. My great-grandmother cured tuberculosis in a village that had no medicine. My mother birthed a child who wasn't supposed to live past a week, me. And I was taught that when someone is dying, you don't ask for permission to help. You just help." She turned to him. "But when I came to this city, all I heard was that healing had to come in a bottle. That if you didn't wear a white coat, you were a scam. So I swept the streets. I watched people rot in gold towers. And I waited. Waited for what? For the person I was meant to save." The silence between them deepened. Damien's throat tightened. "And now that you have, what happens when I'm cured?" She smiled, but it wasn't happy. "That's the part they never tell you. Healers don't stay." Hale Tower, Damien's bedroom. That night, for the first time, he slept without pain. But he dreamed of a woman standing barefoot in a burning field, whispering his name. And when he woke, Mira was gone. Only a note remained. "You have 7 days left, not to die, but to choose the life you want. Don't waste it." Session 5. The Quiet Room. New York City, Damien Hale's penthouse, midnight. The elevator doors slid open with a quiet sigh. Mira stepped in, holding the black card in one hand like it might dissolve if she gripped it too tight. The penthouse at the top of Hale Tower wasn't just quiet, it was still. Like a place where even time had stopped out of respect. Damien was already there, sitting by the floor-to-ceiling window in a charcoal robe, a glass of untouched whiskey in his hand, eyes on the skyline. "You came," he said without turning around. Mira nodded, stepping in, her boots still damp from the rain. "You said you had something to show me," she said, voice calm, but her chest fluttering. "I did." He rose slowly, the weight of the world visible in how his shoulders dropped with each breath. Then he looked at her. "I'm not showing you the part of me people talk about. Not the boardrooms, not the billions. Tonight, I want to show you the part of me they left behind." The room with no name. He led her past the sleek modern kitchen and down a narrow hallway to a door she hadn't noticed earlier. He opened it, but didn't step in. She did. Inside, the walls were soft gray, lined with books and a single armchair. But it was what was on the desk that stopped her breath. A photo of a little boy with messy brown curls and a gummy grin. Next to it, a journal. Cracked and worn, she reached for it instinctively. Damien stopped her. "That was James," he said, voice lower now. "My younger brother. He died 10 years ago. I couldn't save him." She froze. "I'm sorry. He was 12. Damien continued. "Fell through the cracks of a system I was too busy to notice. My parents were gone. I was building Hale Empire. I had no idea he was slipping." He finally sat, hands trembling. He used to draw cities he wanted to visit. Rome, Tokyo, Cairo, all on napkins. I kept them all. And when he died, I told myself I'd do something real with this life. Mira moved to the window, trying to absorb the sudden wave of grief. "You've built a billion-dollar company. But I never visited those cities. Never took time off. Never laughed without guilt. And now," he looked up at her, "now I'm dying, and I don't even know who I became." The journal entry. Mira finally touched the journal. "Do you want me to read it?" He nodded. She opened to a marked page. The ink was smudged, but the words were sharp. October 14th. "Sometimes I think Damien doesn't really live here. He walks fast, talks fast, sleeps with one eye open. He's like a machine. But last night, he sat on the floor and let me draw on his arm. He didn't stop me. He just looked tired. I think he's lonely. I wish I could fix that for him." Mira closed it gently, her eyes brimming. "James loved you," she said softly. "I didn't love him enough." Damien replied, "That's not true." He looked at her, and something shifted. In that moment, Mira wasn't just a street cleaner. She was a witness, a mirror, and a challenge. The touch that stayed. He walked up to her, close enough that she could feel the warmth of his breath. You're not what I expected. Neither are you." He hesitated, then lifted her hand. "When you placed this hand on my chest yesterday," he said. My heartbeat, change. I felt something I haven't felt in years. Mira didn't pull away. It's not just medicine, she whispered. What I do? It's not science. Then what is it? I think it's presence, she said. To really be with someone. Without judgment, without masks. He reached for her face. Brushed a strand of wet hair from her cheek. You've seen my ugliness, he said, and you're still here. I don't see ugliness, she replied. I see grief. I see love, buried under ash. A call from the past. Suddenly, Damien's phone buzzed. He ignored it. Then it rang again, and again. Reluctantly, he answered. What? A woman's voice. Sharp, familiar. Damien, it's Caroline. Mira stepped back instinctively. He turned slightly, shielding the call. What do you want? He asked. I heard from your attorney. About the will. About everything. It's none of your business anymore. She's in town. Your mother. Damien's face turned pale. She wants to see you before. Before I die? He snapped. Tell her she's 20 years too late. He hung up. The silence in the room grew thick again. Mira finally asked, You're not going to see her? She left when we were kids. No explanations. No letters. Now I'm 3 days from death. And she remembers I exist? Mira didn't respond. Just walked to the armchair. Sat. And waited. What? He asked. I'm not leaving, she said. Not until you forgive yourself. Not her. You. The needle. An hour passed. They talked. Not about illness. Not about wealth. About guilt. About how grief becomes armor. About how hard it is to breathe when your lungs are filled with the weight of things unsaid. Then she asked, Do you trust me? He looked up. Yes. She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a delicate pouch of linen. Inside, a single golden acupuncture needle. What is that? My family's legacy, she said. You said you wanted to feel alive before you go. I'm going to help you do that. She instructed him to lie down. With calm precision, she pressed the needle into a specific point near his heart. Not physically, but energetically. He gasped. A warmth radiated through his chest like sunrise pouring into a cold room. His vision blurred, not from pain. From light. He gripped her hand. What is this? Just the beginning, she whispered. Session 6. The diagnosis the world missed. New York City, Hale Tower 6:45 a.m. The sunrise crept through the towering windows of the penthouse. Golden light spilled over Damien's face as he opened his eyes. But something was different. For the first time in weeks. His breathing wasn't strained. His limbs didn't ache like they were made of rust and regret. The pain that had become a quiet roommate was gone. He sat up slowly. No dizziness. He stood. No trembling. What the hell? He whispered. Across the room, Mira sat on the couch. Barefoot, legs crossed, sipping tea like she hadn't just flipped medicine on its head. You're standing, she said softly. Without looking up, he turned to her, stunned. What did you do to me last night? I reminded your body how to remember itself, she said, setting her cup down. It's not magic. It's memory. And maybe a little something more. A knock on the door. A sharp knock interrupted the moment. Damien hesitated, then opened the door. Dr. Alex Moran stepped in. Briefcase in hand, eyes weary from too many overnight shifts. I got your message, he said. You sounded different. Damien gestured for him to come in. I need you to run my vitals. All of them. Blood work, imaging, everything. Dr. Moran raised an eyebrow. Damien, your liver's shutting down. You were barely standing 3 days ago. Just do it, he cut in, calmer than usual. The doctor shrugged, setting up his kit. Mira, still quiet, stood and offered to help. Dr. Moran looked at her. And who's this? Before Damien could answer, Mira extended her hand. Mira Lane, I clean the streets outside your office. And occasionally, I reset dying CEOs. The doctor laughed, then realized she wasn't joking. He looked back at Damien, who simply nodded. She helped me last night. You'll see. 2 hours later, the results. Dr. Moran stared at the tablet screen like it had personally betrayed him. This can't be right, he muttered. He ran the numbers again. And again. Your enzyme levels have normalized. The organ failure markers, gone. Your inflammation is down by 80%. It's like your body reversed its own clock. He looked up, eyes wide. What the hell did you do? Damien looked at Mira. She touched my chest, he said, and I could feel everything inside me shifting. Dr. Moran walked over to Mira, voice tight with skepticism. Are you a licensed physician? No, she replied simply. Then how? She met his gaze with unwavering calm. Because your world looks at systems. Mine listens to stories, to trauma, to breath. My family practiced medicine long before your schools had walls. The doctor stepped back, unsure whether to challenge her or thank her. Marissa Blake arrives. The elevator chimed again. This time, it was Marissa Blake, Damien's closest legal advisor and his friend for 15 years. She rushed in, tablet in hand. I heard you canceled your end-of-life directives, Damien. What's going on? She stopped when she saw Mira. And she is? My guest, he replied. And the reason I'm not dying this week. Marissa blinked, processing that. I know this is hard to believe. Damien added, but she did something no one else could. And I need your help to protect her. Marissa's lawyer mode kicked in instantly. Protect her from what? She healed the unhealable, he said, and the world's going to want her, own her, use her, sell her. Mira stepped in, eyes calm. I won't be owned. I know, Damien said, but if they come after you, they'll have to come through me first. A whisper passed. That night, as Damien lay in bed, stronger, breathing freely, he asked her the one question he hadn't yet dared to. Who taught you? Mira sat on the floor beside his bed, tying herbs into small bundles. My grandfather, she said after a pause. He was known as the last palm reader of Louisiana. But he didn't read fortunes. He read bodies. He said illness was where truth got buried. Did he heal people? She smiled. He healed souls. Their bodies followed. And what happened to him? They called him a fraud. Locked him up for practicing without a license. He died 2 weeks after they let him out. But not before he taught me everything. Damien reached out, touched her hand. I think, you were supposed to find me. She looked at him, silent. Soft. I think I was. A surveillance photo. The next morning, as sunlight poured across the penthouse floor again, a man in a black suit walked into a private room at the top of another building. He dropped a photo onto a mahogany table. It showed Mira, stepping out of Damien's building. Below it, a note. Subject: Mira Lane, status: unregistered practitioner, potential asset. A voice behind the desk said coldly, find out where she came from, and what else she can do. Session 7. The Price of a Miracle. Hale Tower, executive floor, 10 a.m. Damien adjusted his tie in the mirror. The reflection of a man who, 3 days ago, couldn't stand without assistance. Now, he looked 10 years younger. His phone buzzed. Marissa, you need to come downstairs. Now. Lobby, Hale International. The scene was chaos. Cameras, reporters, microphones, shouting. How did you recover, Mr. Hale? Is it true a cleaner cured your illness? What does this mean for modern medicine? Marissa pushed through the crowd and grabbed his arm. This isn't going away. Damien's jaw tightened. Who leaked it? She held up her phone. Someone from the hospital. The anonymous tip said you were declared terminal, then discharged less than 48 hours later. Damien looked past the crowd to Mira, who stood calmly by the revolving doors, her face unreadable beneath her simple scarf. This wasn't just a media frenzy. This was a target painted on her back. Private office, moments later. Marissa closed the door behind them. Voice low. You need to get in front of this. By doing what? Damien shot back. Throwing Mira under a bus? Telling the world a miracle is only acceptable if it comes in a lab coat? She's not safe, Marissa said, and neither are you. Just then, a knock. A man stepped in. Tall, crisp black suit, eyes like granite. Agent Nathan Royce, Federal Health and Ethics Commission. Marissa tensed. Damien stayed seated. What can I help you with? Royce placed a file on the desk. You received off-record medical intervention from a woman with no medical license, no national registry, no identifiable background. You are a public figure. Mr. Hale, we take unauthorized treatment of someone like you very seriously. Damien didn't flinch. I'm alive. That's what matters. Royce didn't smile. And if it was a fluke? If others try to imitate it and die? Marissa leaned forward. Are you threatening to arrest her? Royce closed the file. We don't want her arrested. We want her recruited. Damien's voice dropped. Not happening. She's a national asset, Mr. Hale, whether she wants to be or not. Outside, back entrance, that night. Mira stood in the alley behind Hale Tower. watching shadows move. I told you this would happen, she whispered. Damien appeared beside her, coat draped over his shoulders. I can get you out of the country, he said. New passport, clean ID, disappear. She turned, eyes soft. I'm not running. Then what? I came here to help someone who was ready to die. She looked at him. Now I see the world's more sick than you ever were. Damien's voice cracked. They'll come for you. They already are. Chairman Holden Shaw's penthouse. Holden stared at a paused news clip. Mira. Blurry, but visible. His lips curled into a cold smile. So she's real. He turned to his assistant. I want her. Sir, the federal government already has eyes on her. He poured a drink. Then I'll offer something they can't. Money. And when money fails, he raised his glass. We use fear. Penthouse balcony. Damien and Mira stood under the stars. Silence between them. Below, New York shimmered, unaware that a war had begun, not of guns, but of belief. Why didn't you ever want to be known? He asked. Because fame wants ownership, not understanding. And now? She looked up at him. I want to stay, but only if you understand what that means. What does it mean? That healing you was the easy part. Session 8. The notebook in the safe. Damien woke to the sound of wind moaning through the cracks in the window panes. He blinked at the ceiling. His chest no longer hurt. For the first time in months. He wasn't gasping. His body felt light. But the room was colder. Emptier. Mira? He called out. No answer. He sat up, painlessly, and that fact alone terrified him. Mira had touched his chest the night before. Just once, with those trembling fingers that carried centuries of something ancient. Then she was gone. All that remained was a silk handkerchief folded neatly on the table. And a smell. Something between eucalyptus and old ink. Damien grabbed the handkerchief. Inside was a note, written in a foreign script. Underneath it, a symbol. A serpent wrapped around a caduceus. Medical, esoteric, secretive. Elliot, Damien murmured, picking up his phone. Get here, now. 30 minutes later, Elliot arrived soaked, having run 6 blocks in the rain after the town car got stuck behind a blackout. You're standing, he said, breathless. I'm cured, Damien replied, his voice oddly calm, and I don't know how. He handed Elliot the handkerchief. Elliot studied the symbol. That's impossible. Start talking, Damien said. Elliot hesitated. I've seen this symbol before. Back when your father died. There were rumors of a woman who appeared at his bedside. Late at night, no records, no cameras. Your dad called her the last door. Damien clenched his jaw. So my father wasn't just hallucinating? Elliot shook his head. There's a file, locked in the old safe behind the painting. The one you never touched. Minutes later, behind the oil painting of a foggy coastline, Damien opened the safe, hands steady. Inside, a single notebook. Hand-bound leather. No label. No dust. He opened it. The pages were handwritten in his father's neat script. There are 2 kinds of healers in the world. Those who learn it, and those who are born with it. I met her on a Tuesday. During a thunderstorm, I was ready to die. She wasn't supposed to be real. But when she touched me, my lungs filled again, my pain ceased, and I saw her eyes. They weren't of this world. They called her Mira. Damien dropped the notebook. His pulse raced. That name again. It wasn't coincidence. Somewhere in Chinatown, Mira sat alone in a hidden courtyard behind a shuttered apothecary. Rain slicked the stone tiles. She held a locket in her palm. Inside, a photo, grainy, faded, taken decades ago. A man and a baby. She whispered to herself, in a tongue no one remembered anymore. The words were a prayer. Or a curse. Back at the penthouse, Elliot flipped the pages faster. There's more, he said. It says she saved people before. People powerful enough to make her disappear when needed. Disappear? Damien snapped. Elliot nodded. She's not listed anywhere. No social. No DMV. Nothing. It's like she's been erasing herself for years. Damien stared at the rain. Find her, he said. I don't care what it takes. 20 years ago. A hospital in Boston. A teenage Damien watches a woman in a janitor's uniform leave his father's ICU room. Moments later, the alarms stop. His father, who was on the brink, sits up. Who was that? Young Damien whispers. No one knows, but the camera above the hallway blinks red. No footage, just static. Now, in the present, Damien stood in front of the floor-length mirror. His body had changed, not just healed, reforged. No scars, no weakness, his eyes, clearer, but his heart, racing. "Mira," he whispered again, "who are you? And why do I feel like I already knew you?" Myra's hidden journal. In an old suitcase beneath the apothecary tiles, Mira had left behind another journal. Inside, written in her hand, "I can't stay long anywhere. Every time I heal, I get weaker. They don't know that part. I healed Damien because I remembered the boy who offered me his umbrella in a storm once. He didn't know who I was. He was just kind. That boy became the man dying in front of me. I had to save him, even if it cost me. But he's close to learning the truth. And when he does, everything will change." Back to Damien. The last page in his father's journal had one more twist. "If she ever returns, protect her. They will come for her. Not because she's powerful, but because she's the last one." Damien's eyes narrowed. What the hell does that mean? At 3:46 a.m., a phone rang inside a marble building in DCA private line. Answered by a man with no last name. "She's surfaced," the voice said. "The cleaner. Mira." "Where?" "New York." There was a pause. "Send the silence." Then the line went dead. Session 9. The Hidden Heirloom. The moonlight washed over the Hale estate like a silent blessing. Damien stood at the edge of the overgrown garden in bare feet. His once gaunt frame now filled with cautious vitality. Beside him, Mira moved through the ivy in her usual quiet grace. Her fingers brushed against rosemary branches like they were memories. "Do you smell it?" she asked softly. "Jasmine," he said, "and something older." Mira turned toward him, her long dark hair pinned up with a twig she had twisted into something beautiful. "Your mother's garden still remembers." Damien's breath caught. He hadn't heard anyone mention Teresa Hale in years, not with tenderness. "She planted every inch of this with her hands," he said, almost to himself. "She used to say healing begins from the ground up." "She was right," Mira said, "and she left something behind for you." Damien blinked. "What?" Mira pointed to a square patch of soil beneath the rosebushes, where nothing ever grew. "Dig there." He hesitated. "Why would she hide anything from me?" "Maybe it wasn't for who you were back then," she murmured. "Maybe it's for who you are now." He grabbed the garden spade leaning against the bench. Every slice of soil felt like peeling back a layer of his past. After 15 minutes, the spade hit something solid, a rusted metal box wrapped in plastic and cloth. His hands trembled. Mira stepped closer but didn't touch. She let him do this alone. Inside the box was a letter, wrapped in a faded red ribbon. Under it, a wooden figurine of a dragon, a symbol of the Hale family crest, and beneath that, a black notebook. Damien opened the letter first. "My dearest Damien, if you're reading this, then either I was wrong, or you've finally become the man I always believed you could be. You were never built for boardrooms. My love, you were built for legacy, but not the kind that wears suits or signs contracts. You were built to feel, to choose people over power. The Hale name, it's not as pure as we pretended. I know you've begun to suspect it, especially after your father died. Isaac is not your enemy, but he is not your savior either." Inside this notebook are records I never dared share with anyone. They detail the real beginnings of Hale Dynamics, and the price paid to keep it. You have a chance now to rewrite it all, but not alone. You'll need someone who sees through you. Someone unafraid of your scars. If she's still with you, trust her. Love always. Mom. Damien read it twice. The second time, his hands were shaking. He looked at Mira, who had turned away, giving him privacy. Her back straight, her shoulders strong even under a threadbare cardigan. "You knew something was here." Mira nodded. "Not what, just energy. This place hums with pain and protection." He held the notebook in his hand. The wood on the dragon figurine was warm. "Mira," he said, "will you help me rebuild it?" She turned. Her eyes were unreadable, full of moonlight and melancholy. "I don't want your world, Damien. I only came here to heal a dying man." "You did," he said, "but now he wants to live for the right reasons. With the right person." Boardroom. Earlier that day, Isaac stood at the head of the table, wearing a navy three-piece suit and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "The Hale Foundation will go public in 40 days. Damien's condition," he paused dramatically, "remains fragile. I'll act as interim CEO until further notice." The board nodded in half-hearted agreement. Then the doors opened. Damien walked in, taller, stronger, no cane. His black turtleneck hugged a body no longer fading. Isaac's smile faltered. "Mr. Hale, this is a private meeting." "Not anymore," Damien said calmly. "And you're not CEO." "I am." Effective immediately. There was stunned silence. "I thought you were dying," one board member whispered. "I was," Damien replied, "until someone reminded me I had a reason not to." Back in the garden. "I'm scared," Damien said suddenly, surprising even himself. Mira looked at him. "Of what?" "Of becoming the man my mother saw in me." She walked to him, took the letter from his hands, folded it back into the box. "Then let's do it one page at a time." He looked at her like he was seeing sunlight after too many years in the dark. "Mira, I think She placed a finger to his lips. "Not yet," she said. "When your heart stops whispering and starts knowing, then tell me." He nodded. And in that garden, under the stars, Damien Hale realized he hadn't just found the cure to his illness. He'd found the reason to fight for a new life. Session 10, the whisper that became a roar. The cameras clicked as Damien stepped onto the stage. He didn't wear a tie. No suit jacket. Just a black shirt, sleeves rolled, revealing scars and strength. The audience, hundreds deep, stood in stunned silence. He leaned forward into the microphone. "I was supposed to be dead by now," he began, voice calm but with an undercurrent of steel. 3 months ago, I signed my last will. 3 days ago, I danced barefoot in a garden I haven't walked in since my mother died." A murmur ran through the room. He smiled slightly. "So yeah, let's talk about miracles." Behind him, a screen lit up. Footage played, him in a hospital bed. Tubes, machines, shadows. Then clips of him, more recent, walking, standing tall, holding Myra's hand under the moonlight. "This woman," he said, as Mira stepped into view from stage left, jeans, a soft gray sweater, and quiet dignity, "is not a doctor by any certification you know. But she's the only reason I'm breathing today." Gasps. Mira simply nodded, not smiling, not apologizing for who she was. She's been mistaken for a street cleaner. A nobody. She once swept floors outside this very building. Damien paused. "Funny, she ended up sweeping the rot out of my soul instead." Laughter. Nervous. Odd. Isaac stood in the wings. Eyes like daggers. "And now," Damien said, reaching into the inside of his jacket, "it's time we sweep out the rest." He pulled out a notebook. "My mother kept meticulous records. Not just about her garden, but about this company. About its origins. And about the price she paid to keep it alive." He opened the book. The Hale name didn't grow this empire alone. There were deals. Blood deals. Off-the-books acquisitions. Bribes. Boardroom threats. All signed and buried under the rug. Gasps again. Flashes. Reporters whispering. "This is a list of shell companies, funneling millions to private accounts. Many of them tied directly to Isaac Grayson." Silence. Then a shocked buzz. Isaac stepped forward. "This is slander." Damien didn't flinch. "Is it? You were executor of my father's estate. You were given full access to our back-end financials for over a decade." "I was protecting the company," Isaac barked. "From regulators. From ruin. You were protecting yourself." Damien snapped, slamming the notebook shut. "And doing it behind my mother's back." "Your mother? My mother trusted you," Damien said, voice lowering. "More dangerous. She gave you power when I was too young. You used that power to rewrite history." Mira stepped forward. "But the soil remembers," she said softly, "even when people forget." Isaac's face flushed. "You dare let her speak here?" "She speaks because she knows the cost of silence," Damien said. "You." Suddenly, Annette Leclerc stood up. "Mr. Hale," she said, "if this is true, are you saying Hale Dynamics was built on corruption?" Damien nodded. "On fear, on secrets, and on people pretending they cared more about legacy than love." A long beat. Then, "So what now?" Damien turned to the audience, his eyes unwavering. "Now, we tell the truth. We rebuild it from the roots. We stop choosing profits over people. We start again, and we do it with integrity." He looked at Mira. "And we do it with people who aren't afraid to walk barefoot through the dirt." Applause. Slow, then thunderous. Isaac stepped back, pale. The walls he'd built for decades were cracking. Later, private lounge. After the summit, Damien sat alone. Mira entered quietly. "I didn't mean for your name to be known." he said, voice low. You deserved a choice. You gave me one, she replied. You didn't just survive, you stood up for something. He looked at her. The whisper inside me, it's not quiet anymore. I think it's been roaring your name since the moment I met you. She didn't look away. I never asked for this spotlight, she said, but if I had to walk through fire, I'd rather do it with someone who doesn't flinch. He smiled, then pulled something from his pocket. A silver ring. Simple. Real. I'm not proposing, he said, not yet, but I'm asking if we can keep walking. Through every boardroom, every garden, every storm. She took the ring, held it to her heart. We walk, she whispered. Outside, the press roared, but inside, it was quiet. The kind of quiet that only comes after truth sets fire to a lie, and makes space for something new to grow. The garden that never died. It was the first frost of the season. Thin crystals clung to the roses like lace. Mira knelt beside the garden bed, tucking soil around the roots of a stubborn winter bloom. She had her hair tied back. Her sweater sleeves were pushed past her elbows. Hands muddy, as always. From behind, footsteps crunched on gravel. You know we have gardeners now. Damien's voice teased gently. She didn't look up. They don't talk to the plants like I do. He smiled, stepping beside her, holding 2 mugs of tea. One for her, one for himself. I spoke with the board this morning. He said, Mrs. Leclerc wants to name a medical foundation after you. I'd rather have a compost bin named after me. She replied dryly. Too late, he said, smirking. They already approved the Mira initiative, focused on accessibility, integrative medicine, and quiet revolutions. She exhaled slowly. I didn't do this for a plaque. I know. He sat beside her in the grass. The earth was cold beneath them, but neither moved. But it's time the world learned how to honor people like you. She didn't speak for a while. Then finally, I hated you the first time we met. He laughed. You thought I was an arrogant, dying billionaire. You were an arrogant, dying billionaire. They both laughed. I found your mother's letter yesterday, she said. He grew quiet. I didn't know it existed until 2 nights ago. It was tucked in a hollow part of the cedar box she kept in her closet. It was for you, Mira said, but I think she meant it for both of us. She pulled it from her jacket pocket, unfolded the creased paper, and read aloud. To my son Damien, if you're reading this, then the truth has finally found light. I hope you've learned that leadership is not about control, but about care. I hope you've met someone who taught you that stillness is strength. And if that someone is reading this with you, then know, I saw you long before the world did. Take care of each other. Let the garden grow. And please, don't forget to rest. A breeze moved through the hedges. It sounded like a sigh from the past. She knew, Damien said. She always knew more than she let on. She planted you, Mira said, like she planted this garden. She knew the storms would come, but she believed something would bloom again. Damien turned to her. And you, are you ready to bloom too? She didn't answer. Instead, she stood, brushed dirt from her knees, and walked toward the willow tree where it all began. He followed. Under the sweeping branches was a small bench. She sat. He did too. I have one question, she said, looking out toward the horizon. And I need you to answer without thinking. Just answer like it still hurts. Damien braced himself. If I hadn't stayed, if I had walked away the night you tried to push me out of your life, would you have let me go? He turned to her, slowly, and whispered, if I hadn't let you go that night, maybe everything would have been different. But I would have still been dying. Just not in my body. In my soul. Silence. Then she leaned into him. Quietly. Fiercely. Good, she said, because I never wanted to be your cure. Just your mirror. And in that moment, without needing permission, without needing a crowd or vows or contracts, he kissed her. Not like a fairy tale. Not like a victory. But like a man finally choosing to live. 2 years later, the Mira Initiative had funded over 20 clinics in underserved regions. Damien Hale rarely gave press interviews anymore, but when he did, he always mentioned his mother's garden and a woman who taught him how to kneel. Isaac Grayson disappeared from the public eye. Rumor had it, he moved to a vineyard in Italy. No one asked why. And every winter, when the first frost kissed the petals again, Damien and Mira would sit under the willow, holding mugs of tea, not needing to speak, because some love stories don't need loud beginnings. They just need someone to stay. A message for the audience. Sometimes, the person who saves you doesn't come in shining armor. They come in quiet, mud on their hands, truth in their eyes, and love that doesn't ask to be praised. This is for anyone who's ever been overlooked, doubted, or called less than. You are not less. You are the root of something great. Let yourself grow, and don't be afraid to bloom when no one's watching. Thank you for watching today's CEO Love Stories. Every love story is a journey, one filled with passion, ambition, sacrifice, and unforgettable moments. Here at CEO Love Stories, we bring you the most compelling tales where power, success, and love collide. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget, like to support more incredible content. Comment your thoughts. Can love overcome power and ambition? Subscribe and turn on notifications, so you never miss our next breathtaking romance. CEO Love Stories, where love and power collide. Because love isn't just a feeling, it's a choice. See you in the next story.